So now we're off to the next roundtable, and in this one we're going to talk about the marketplaces and what future for marketplaces, whether the mainstream or specific. So you've got Pavel Visa, who's the growth VP for PrestaShop. So hello everyone, can you hear us? I'm Pavel Vizor. I'm the Growth VP for PrestaShop. I'm really happy to be here to co-lead this roundtable on marketplaces. And I'm going to start by a few words here. As an expert, when you decide to invent the commerce of tomorrow, of course, you've got to understand the needs of our consumers. And it's clear that today, when you go on to marketplace, it's not a trend, it's a daily thing carried out by millions of consumers in 2008, and there was about 10% in terms of marketplace and consumers. Now it's 57%, so there's a growth rate of 470%. So when you see the significance of the acceleration in the sector that was able to evolve and develop, then you can see that there are a lot of opportunities which have developed and which are there for our merchants with generalists or specialist or specific actors as well, and solutions which enables you to create your own marketplace as well. And so without any further ado, I'm just going to ask for a thunderous round of applause for the people who are going to be in this roundtable with me. And so I'm going to invite the following people now onto the podium with me. Francesco Carvello for Mano Mano, Stanislas Prigent, who's Operations Director for Octopia, Julien Briette, who's in Origani, and Eric Valiant from Wish. So please come up to the stage, gentlemen, and get yourself comfortable. And so without further ado, we've had a crazy 2020. 2001 is nearly over, and I would like you to give us your feedback and market insights and vision for what's happening today in 2021. Do we sort of the same acceleration that we had years ago? So Francesco, perhaps you'd like to start. So hello everyone, and thank you for getting me on board. Great pleasure, and for everything that's dedicated to the home space. We've seen a lot of space in terms of our buyers and our clients. So of course today people aren't confined at home, they're not locked down, they don't spend their time doing DIY and decorating, but they still want a lot of advice, and we can also see it in the numbers as well. So this market share is growing up on the marketplaces. This is also linked to the fact that when you're on the sort of like the digital participation rate is actually quite low, which is about 11%. We've come from a long way. When I started 7 years ago, we were around 2% on the European level. So I really think that there's going to be a lot of consumer behavior changes which is coming, and of course it's always a challenge to correspond to the needs. And like we said, to understand the needs and expectations, this is how you invent the commerce of tomorrow. And with the specialists with it today, it's very important to talk about it. Stanislas, would you like to talk us to us? Yes, this trend is something that you see quite markedly since the beginning of the e-commerce, which has been growing now for the last 10 years. And it's accelerating again during the pandemic. And marketplace are doing really well out of this, and they're now the principal beneficiaries of this growth. Increase in 57%, and the forecasts that we have for the end of next year and the beginning of next year is about 75% growth. So it's something that's quite significant. And within the various trends that we see, the marketplace subject is on the agenda of an awful lot of pure players and retailers today. And that's something that we have taken note of. And these actors want more and more to surf on this dynamic and to benefit from the growth that this can bring them. And this is what we see on a daily basis in Octopia. So Eric from Wish, Would you like to give us any insights? Yes, and hello to everyone. Yes, it is important. Like my colleagues who just talked before me, it's not only on the French stage, it's it's on the whole world. Or you said the whole world. You've got to continue with the cross-border strategy. There's a lot of merchants with this COVID crisis not only continued to get more digital, but they accelerated the transition to the digital world. So this went from e-commerce forward, and the customers that continued to progress, and finally today they've continued to get onto marketplace because they understand there's enormous potential there. And you can see, yeah, that COVID has really meant that digitalization has really accelerated, and marketplace is an opportunity to digitize. It's not just to have your own e-commerce site, but it's also send your catalog onto a marketplace. It's also a factor for acceleration. Julian, do you have anything to say? Yes, so I'm the editor of a marketplace, and what I've seen for 2020, 2021 is that more and more people are going to marketplace, Stanislaus was saying, and as we've been able to see in origami, is the use of marketplace, whereas before the marketplace was Amazon, it was Cdiscount, and the behemoths, the massive ones where you did B2C, and now on the marketplace, second hand, or to have purchasing for companies and procurement, and you've got pure players. You've got smaller market merchants as well who create their own marketplace just to sell the products. And this is what we were saying earlier: is that it's a business line that's really evolved over the time. We thought that at the beginning that it was the major players that took it, but no, it's beginning to break down a little bit. We've got specialists who are in there as well, with the circular economy as well, which is also quite interesting. And there's the mainstream, which sort of like really have consolidated their game as well. And so if you just get to this more mainstream vision and for the opportunities that exist for our merchants, when a merchant decides today with his strategic vision, they decide to go into a generalist mainstream. So what's what are the stakes involved? What are the advantages and benefits? What are the pros and cons? Well, I can resume everything at the moment. It's the facility. There's a, there's a huge traffic in marketplaces, on the general marketplaces. It's not just on the general as well. You've got to remind yourself as well that there are general marketplaces and specialist marketplaces, and there are opportunities uh, with a there's enormous volume of traffic on there as well, and this visibility, they've got to accompany their customers. They've got to support them with a proper catalog, with the proper product files, and with deadlines as well, because it enables them to respond in a quality way to the expectations of consumers. So it's an interesting playing field, but it's accelerating really, really fast. And yes, of course, and there's also additional sales. For example, when a customer is looking for a particular product on a marketplace, and it's crossed with another product that they don't know, so there can be cross-selling as well, and they're going to buy that again, so it generates additional sales. Yes, that's the benefit of all this. We've all had this experience before, all of us, whereas sort of like this hole in one where you go and that's the advantage of being on a generalist marketplace. And today we were talking about the numbers earlier. Sort of like you're a global actor. You're not a Chinese actor, but you're an American actor on the market, which is interesting. And the habits today and customs. You've got a prism of products which is extremely vast, extremely varied, and the acceleration on Wish in 2021. This is continuing post-COVID as well. So, are there new types of users which have gone on to Wish after COVID? Yes, it's very interesting, and it's exactly like you were saying. Because before Wish, we've got a completely different strategy. So there were more Chinese merchants, but now they're also supporting local merchants in each country, and with all this internationalization, And they're not just looking at the big international markets and Chinese, but also French, and help them sell cross-border. And it's a good way of doing this. Thank you very much. It's quite clear. If you've got to just summarize this rapidly, there's a visibility, you can categorize products, and it's a new type of purchaser as well who's arriving on the marketplace. And there's a capacity of accelerating things. So there are real commercial opportunities there. Thank you. So now I'm going to talk to Francesco about this specialist. So this responds to a lot of criteria. Now, so you're going to be talking. In this capacity as an expert. So you've got an expert like Mano Mano, who's got an amazing growth and a fantastic story as well. What are the stakes involved for you today? The pros and cons. So when you're a specialist on the market, I think you've got to adapt really quickly to demand, market demand and customer demands. You've got to be very concentrated on the customers and how they respond. Now, with respect to the final buyer or the merchant, the principle of marketplaces, sort of like so that it's as transparent and virtuous as possible. You've got two clients, the buyer and the seller, and it's a real challenge because sort of like as the customers become more demanding, as the marketplace becomes more digital, they want to buy products of different categories. It's more complex to navigate through all. It's like when you start buying, it's like when you buy paint online, for example. How do you pick the color without being physically there? So you've got to provide the proper solutions. How can you be vertical when you're a specialist, and how can you propose improvement? This is where we can concentrate our efforts, and we can provide more tangible proposals, practical proposals. We're talking about a lot of technical products, for example. So if somebody's got a DIY project, it's your house, and you've got security issues, then you've got to support them during the purchase. And this is where we support with technical support and pre-sale, and not just sort of like frequently asked questions, or sort of like, oh, where's my order? And this is where we can really find general marketplace is much more complex because of the thousands of categories of products, and but we can provide specialized advice. That's for the customer. And now for the merchants as well, we've got a business model which is quite special. We're a selective marketplace, which means that we choose the merchants with which we work, which enables us to have much closer relationships with our sellers, and we know what their needs are and expectations are, and so finally we can deliver feature and functions that correspond more to their needs and expectations. And sometimes these are needs and expectations which it's concerned logistics, for example. When I send you, like when I send you a book, or when I send you something big for your garden, that's what I mean about being vertical. You've got to have an overview of the whole thing, and accompany and support all our partners and help them expand internationally and to do business together, quite simply. Yeah, because as a specialist, there's this duty of being an expert specialist on a subject. So it's this way with your partners. They've got a certain level of requirements and demands. And when a merchant wants to enter into a specialized marketplace today, you sort of like make sure that they correspond to certain criteria, so that they don't just let anyone in. And it's also as well that you can transmit all this know-how about specific products, and to be able to get it as simply to the customers as possible. Because when you sort of like sell an electric drill to somebody, it's very, very hard to know how to be. You've got to be mature. So sort of like a person on the ground would just take make the bad choice. So your capacity is there to understand the sort of like the needs of the seller on one side and the buyer on the other. And especially our objective and goal is to create a catalog which is as wide and as broad and deep as possible, because sometimes you've got the same customer, but they need different quantities, different products at different times, and so you need to be able to adapt and correspond to different types of questions, even if it's the same customer. But sort of like they need different things at different times. You've always got to be there. So, with respect to a specific marketplace, you've got to be an expert in your field, and you've got to be able to. So, you've got to be able to. You've got to be able to display this expertise so that just it attracts even more expertise. Yeah, you try to help the merchant grow their business, so you do business together because development of international business, promotional issues for all of pricing, for example, forecasting all of this, and categories in which they can develop business. But on the other hand, we need somebody as well who's got real product expertise and know-how for sourcing and to create this catalog. And the partnerships that we've set up, these are real long-term partnerships because there's a significant investment and because you spend a lot of time on this, different to other models in the marketplace where you've got, yeah, it's a little bit more complex. Um, and there's, like you were saying earlier, it's sort of like there are pros and there are cons for both sides of the business, the general side and the specialist side, and the strategy as well of the merchants to be and have the right strategy, to make sure that they're actually in the right place. And it depends on the products, of course, that they're selling and everything. But there's a new. We have this capacity now for quite a while, but it's getting more democratic. It's accelerating now. When you go into when you decide to do your own marketplace within another marketplace, this is a little bit new because in the past it was a little bit difficult. Why go into a marketplace when I've got giants? Why would you compete with giants? But in any case, today it's possible. It's a real strategy. And Julian Stanislas, can you tell us? I don't know who wants to start, but got maybe you've got ideas on the subject. Do you have anything to share with us? I've got things to share to you because it really corresponds to stakes. The first thing that you've got to take into account here is a factor which is quite simple for a retailer today who's going to want to go on the internet and develop commerce and you could open up a marketplace really easy. The other lever that you have is the extension of variations and assortments. This doesn't concern developing an assortment and an offer which is unlimited in every direction, but to have an assortment which is in line with the DNA of the pure player, and which is in line as well with the expectations and needs of consumers. And the same thing for an actor who's going to develop the marketplace, who's going to become a leader in the segment by enabling all of the consumers to find all their needs in this sector on the same platform. Yeah, that's important. Do you want to add something here? Yeah, I'm just going to come back to what you said, Stanislas. I completely agree with you. When you're talking about extending product ranges, and also when you come back to the point, what's the advantage of creating your own marketplace? I want to pass the other question the other way around. So, what's the advantages and benefits that you want to offer your consumers for a retailer? Marketplaces to offer new services or new products, or for example, second-hand products, or really, or repairing products, for example. So it's to broaden one's offer and to make the customers more loyal. These are the real stakes involved with the marketplace. And like we were talking about second-hand, this is also with respect to the climatic crisis, for example. And by use of like you can put forward finally that you can repair products and recycle them, etc. So this is an important vector to give the customer more. And because this is right important, I said at in the introduction that the magic of the marketplace sector is that it's very reactive. It knows how to follow trends and react and adapt. And you were talking about the circular economy and second-hand products. There are example for the type of merchant or retailers who are starting to introduce this type of product range and are using your service in order to adopt this. Well, I should have contacted them before. I should have contacted them before because I've got lots of stuff lying around. But and you've got to know as well that if I take the example of Mano Mano, for example, we have second-hand tools, or you have somebody who sort of like who always wants to have the best drill, and there's somebody who sort of like does DIY from time to time. Maybe we should be able to buy second-hand drills and not always buy the most expensive new ones. And there's no important vertical, and the marketplace can be sort of like there's customers that want more and more circular economy, and it's important for us to be able to respond to that. Yeah, of course, there's an extremely vast and varied offer, so this really corresponds to a specific need. I was talking about technical tools and stuff, but there's a real global thing here for the second-hand market with the extension of product ranges, which we can do with new products, but we can also do it with second-hand products as well. And we were talking about extending product ranges, but what I was thinking about today was the merchant or the retailer who wants to extend the product range are the key points, because I don't think we should do things by half. We've got to have real vision, and even if you commit some errors at the beginning, you make mistakes, but this is what people do. It's a learning curve, and there are a certain number of considerations you've got to take into account. There are some which are interesting to share. The first one is to consider that the marketplace isn't just is a technical challenge. This is the first step, but beyond that, there's the whole business challenge as well, which is absolutely essential, and you talk about the virtuous circle between the seller, the offer, and the customer. The more sellers you have, the more offer you have. The more offer you have, then the more customers are going to come, and then this forms a positive spiral. And then there are more customers, so it means there are going to be more sellers, and they're going to succeed the platform. That's absolutely key. So the stake involved here is to have a certain number of qualified offers and sellers in order to succeed commercially. This is a real element to be taken into consideration as of the beginning. Now, the second point after that, which is really important, and Julien, you talked about this earlier, and Francesco, but you can see that there's a real development. The consumers today are really looking for a fluidity and facility, and sort of like when they're buying something, and they want the same experience in a marketplace than they had in the past years in traditional commerce or sales points. And this is another step. These are success factors. The first is that the purchase pathway has to be positive. You've got to build your marketplace in continuity, or the follow-up to an in-city commerce. It's a model for selling online that's been rethought with a lot of features that are particular to itself. But in a browser, you put all the marketplaces in with the sort of, it's not going to really work. So you've got to properly position and push your products as well. There's all the merchandising stuff and the pricing issues. You've really got to think about these very hard. And then there are also the aspects as well linked to quality, the offer, products. It's absolutely essential. We're not in a world anymore where marketplaces are just a long list and range of cheap products. It's really become more demanding, where we're looking for more quality. And just a last point, that everything which is connected to logistics and deliveries today, we see a lot of marketplaces which make this a priority. The consumer today doesn't accept to be, sort of like accept that they don't want a delivery in 10 days with very high delivery fees. They've got high requirements in this respect. So yeah, so that there are a lot of stakes involved. It's not just a technical problem to create a marketplace. It's not just you've got to create the whole market value chain and have the proper stakeholders on board. And you've got to really have a high level in terms of quality of service, and you've got to attain and maintain very high standards. Otherwise, it's hard to attain your goals. Julien, would you like to add anything more about the stakes and issues involved? Yeah, I think that the major issue involved is to be able to offer a unique experience to the customer and to be able to offer new services. It's not just it's not just when you go to Stanislas that the marketplace is just, he's exactly right. It's not just a technical issue about solving a technical problem. I'm going to provide new services and new products to my customers. And you've got to be able to identify these new offers and new services in order to pull the customers in. It's not just about, you've really got to identify and design these new services and new offers and then propose them to the customer. So I think we could talk about this for hours and hours because, depending on your speciality and the playing field that you're all on, the challenges are very vast today. So of course we could talk about this for the next 2 hours and we wouldn't even be finished then, but we've only got 30 minutes to talk and we're getting close to the end. And what would be interesting here, we've been talking, thank you very, very much for your expert advice and insights today and for telling us about the opportunities that are possible and affordable for all the merchants who want to get into the marketplace universe. And my question, just to finish up here, it's always interesting to wrap up like that. We've got 2021, which is finishing up, and we've got 2022, which is going to present its own challenges. Do you have any tips or advice or anything for merchants who'd like to get involved in the marketplace, but also agencies who support merchants and help them get involved in the marketplace? But do you have any insights and tips, a little bit of advice, or just sort of like what would you like to share with us just to wrap up? Okay, so I haven't talked in a while, so I'll start. If I had a tip to just do it, but do it properly. Don't be afraid of the technical thing of the whole setup. I've got a project for a marketplace. You've got to just get going. You've got to make sure that everything's on you, all the luck is on your side. You create your own luck. It's not an opportunity that's reserved for the top 10 in the field. It's something that's accessible for everybody. So if you're going to do it, but do it properly, and don't hesitate to get advice from the right people like us. And you just got to go and do it. Eric, if you'd like to just give us you've got to concentrate on your business and leave leave it to marketplace. That's us. You spend a lot of time on it, and if you've got more, you've got to attract as much people as you can to the marketplace. It's the same. You've got to act. You've got to just do it, but at the same time as well, you've got to have visibility and sort of like firepower. You've got to be visible, and it's immediate. Thank you, Stanislas. And it's the same, like you were saying. So I think we've all said that the principal issue involved here is to integrate the consumer or the client in this marketplace approach. We're in a trend at the moment where the marketplace is undergoing huge development, but the offer is not the only driver here. And so the winners of tomorrow are going to be those who dealt with this point and made it a priority. Yep, that seems clear. Francesco? So just to close, we talked a lot about technical issues. And so I would really recommend all merchants who want to get involved, don't underestimate the other issues involved and your teams. It's not just a tech issue that you've got to resolve. You've got to really pick the right partners, whether they're external partners or internal partners. And sometimes this can represent a real challenge. You can't neglect this, and don't go too fast. Take a little bit of time. I know you've got to just go out there and do it, but you've got to do it with the right people, the right way, do it properly. And by respecting some simple rules at the beginning, pick the right partners, because I don't know if it's, but going on the marketplace is a question of finding the right partners, because it's not just a lever for purchasing, it's also a partner. And in any case, just to deal with the first mainstream issues and the specialist, you're in contact with a partner who you can challenge you, but can also help you. And from this point of view, you sort of have, you've you've got to make sure that people have the right quality criteria when they're setting up their own marketplace. So thank you very much. It's a vast subject, and I'd love a big round of applause here for our panelists, because the subject, it's very hard to condense it all into 30 minutes. And I think we hit on all the main key issues. It's very hard to do it in only half an hour. I hope that we give you some insights that show you. We had 4 very good panelists here on board. I hope we learned a lot, and thank you very much. There's not a Q&A session straight away, but if you find them in the corridors afterwards, and buttonhole them. And now we're going to get launched down to the next round table, and I hope that you understand a little bit more now about the marketplaces and the marvelous opportunities that exist there. Thank you very much.